elected whether you were going to be a member of the council or not. And that's the only way you can get a representative sample to form a deliberative body. The other system they had in ancient Greece was a town meeting, where votes would be held on major issues by a show of hands. Now, obviously nowadays you can't get the whole of a country together into a square to vote on something, but you can get the whole of the country to vote on who is going to be stay in the Big Brother house or other television reality shows by using their mobile phones. And the same technology could be readily used on important issues which have to be decided by the population as a whole. The sorts of issues which really demand that kind of democracy, I think, are issues like war or peace, whether or not taxes should go up, the major outlines of the national budget. Major decisions like that should be put to the population as a whole in a referendum. Now, one of the possible drawbacks, I suppose, of a democracy is that you can't predict what people are going to decide. But all that one can say is that decisions made by a large number of people tend to be better decisions than decisions made by one or two people. And in general, the more people who are asked their opinion about something, and the more people who decide on something, and if you average these decisions, the decision you get tends to be better than the decision taken by one person. So that the best hope, I think, for getting ecologically sensible decisions is firstly to raise the decision from a private decision that's made by the individual to a social decision that is made collectively. And secondly, to involve as many people collectively as possible in making that decision. Now, if a lot of people are engaged in making a decision, it raises debate and discussion about the issue. If people have a say on something, they'll take more interest in it and deliberate on their decisions. A transition to a socialist economy has to go through an intermediate stage of a transition to a cooperative-based economy. That the very first issue is an issue of democracy. The very first issue is an issue of the undemocratic nature of the current state and the need to replace it by a more democratic state. Because we don't think that you can get the really radical changes in society that we advocate unless you have a much more democratic state structure. So the first type of movement is a movement against the existing state and for direct democracy. Economically, however, we envisage the first stage of a transition being legislation which allows, on a vote of the employees in an enterprise, for that enterprise to be transformed into one that is a worker-managed enterprise, in which a majority of the managing board are elected by or selected by lot from the workers, and a minority are appointed by the shareholders. Now, such a managing board is likely to want to pay considerably less dividends to the shareholders than the existing ones. The process of actually transforming the economy to a fully socialist economy, though, cannot be done too rapidly, because you need to first put in place an alternative planning system. So you have to set up a shadow planning system first. And you would then need to have a shift from a monetary economy to a labour value economy. Now, we've seen that in an analogous way occur in Europe, where there was a shift from the national currencies to the euro after some years' planning. And what occurred was that beyond a certain date, the national currency ceased to be recognised as a legal means of paying debts and paying taxes. So that the same process would have to occur. You'd have to say that beyond a certain date, all payments would have to be made in labour vouchers. Now, an effect of that is that it would be a debate on whether such a law should be passed would be enormously polarising, because those people who held large amounts of money in the old system would lose out, and those people who had large debts or even small net debts in the old system would benefit. And in a modern economy where the majority of people are debtors, I think that is potentially a very significant factor in a vote to abolish money and move to labour money, because the majority of people would benefit from that, whereas the millionaires who hold large amounts of money at the moment would obviously lose out. Their money would become worthless. So it poses the issue of wealth and poverty in a particularly sharp fashion. It poses the issue of debt and credit in a particularly sharp fashion. And I see that as being an important final deciding issue.